You can call this our last dance. What's up, guys? This is EJ Stewart, joined by Tommy Beer. This is Orange and Blue Bloods New York Knicks podcast, an Audacy WFAN original. Big episode today. We had a massive trade in the NBA. Giannis Antetokounmpo gets his superstar now, Damian Lillard, joining the Milwaukee Bucks via a major trade. We'll give you guys the latest on that and how it may impact the Knicks. Also, a key Knicks front office member gets a big promotion. I ask Tommy Beer what that means in the short term. And speaking of the great Tommy Beer, this is his final episode here as the co-host of Orange and Blue Blood. So excited to get his thoughts, share some laughs, share some memories from the past year of him doing the podcast with me. So that should be a great moment as well. So we got all that and more coming to you right after this.
If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
So as I said, it's EJ Stewart here, Tommy Beer, last Orange and Blue Bloods with us together as the tandem. Tommy, how you feeling, man?
Just the last episode as co-host, EJ. You know I'll be back here and there. I'll be on the block and checking in on you guys and hopping in here and there. So, crazy. Another rainy day here in New York. Sad, gloomy day. But my Lions went to Lambeau and turned Lambeau Field blue, Honolulu blue last night. So that's the good news. And we got a blockbuster to discuss as well, which I'm going to miss these opportunities to talk about these big trades going forward.
I know, so will I. Yes, Tommy, he steps away from the podcast, but now he has a winning football team now. So he lost something, but he gained something with the end of this show with Tommy and me as the co-host of the Detroit Lions, his beloved Lions, really putting a thumping on the Packers at Lambeau last night. So let's talk Knicks. Again, this is Orange and Blue Bloods, New York Knicks podcast, Audacy WFAN original, a podcast you can get wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Audacy app. Be sure to hit the auto download feature on your streaming service. Get these episodes every time we drop. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube on the WFAN channel. So let's go maybe a little outside the purview of New York City real quick in the Knicks. We got the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, which is now officially over. We finally now may have a prohibitive favorite also in the Eastern Conference. So the Milwaukee Bucks land the 7-time All-Star in a 3-team blockbuster deal. The Blazers receiving Jrue Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Toumani Camara, the Bucks 2029 first-round pick, 2 first-round pick swaps from the Bucks for 2028 and 2030. The Suns, who were the third team in that deal, they get Jusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. So the move ends what has been reported as a very nasty divorce between the Blazers and Damian Lillard. The two sides went months without speaking, while Dame's agent Aaron Goodwin tried to land his client with the Miami Heat. But according to Bleacher Report's Chris Haynes, the Heat and Blazers hadn't spoken since July, and Miami believes Portland let business get personal when it came to trying to make a deal for Damian Lillard. Now, Portland turns the page on what to do with Jrue Holiday, a 33-year-old point guard who is sure to garner interest from contenders and teams with playoff aspirations. The Blazers are reportedly engaging with teams to redirect Holiday elsewhere as it tries to launch its rebuild centered around their first-round draft pick from this year, Scoot Henderson. So Holiday being on the block has led some to wonder if the Knicks could be a landing spot for the 5-time All-NBA defender. So I asked Tommy, should the Knicks go after Jrue Holiday?
Man, EJ, I keep going back and forth on this one. Basically, since the trade went down, I think you could definitely make good arguments for both sides. You know, I've always loved Jrue Holiday as a player. Just somebody that is a quality point guard that can take control of the basketball. Really improved his 3-point stroke the last few years, shooting over 40% during his last 3 years in Milwaukee. Obviously, his championship pedigree. Great dude, like phenomenal human being. Donated his $5 million salary when they were in the bubble. Him and his wife have a ton of philanthropic ventures that they're involved in. So he's like one of those NBA Man of the Year type dudes that you love having in the locker room. In addition to his tremendous skill set. That impacts the rare NBA player, rare point guard especially, or 2-guard can play off the ball. It's the other thing you love about him. He can play, can handle the ball, can play 2-guard. That impacts the game on both ends. That being said, going to be 33. Was remarkably inefficient offensively in the playoffs last season. Has 1 year left on his contract. Is he going to retire? He's talked about retiring, and this isn't one of those guys that would have had that it wouldn't be shocking, I should say, if he decided to step away and dedicate
Yep.
his life to something that's more important than basketball. Like some guys talk about retiring, maybe to up their value and push their current organization to a corner and maybe raise their price tag a little bit. When Holiday was talking about it, you get the sense that he's not bluffing. That
Yeah.
being said, that was a year ago. Maybe he's, it's also a possibility that he's just been kind of jaded by this experience. We know it's been, on Monday he said, I want to retire a buck. And 24 hours later, he's headed to Portland.
Yep.
Then you talk about what are you going to have to give up to get him? Multiple first round draft picks, IQ or Grimes or RJ. Randall's another guy that contractually would work, but you don't see them moving him unless maybe Jeremy Grant got involved in the deal, which is unlikely. So there's kind of all these moving parts. Just on the surface, Drew Holiday's available. Yes, I want the Knicks should go for him because you can't have enough good players. I think Drew Holiday's a winning player. It may cause a little bit of a crunch in the backcourt depending on what you have to give up. It's obviously all depending on price. So I'm definitely open to the idea. I'm still gonna have to work through it. If it's at the right price and you only have to send out one of your, good young players, I think I'd probably lean towards RJ. I know the common thinking here is that you move Grimes or IQ, and then you get the backcourt of and then you have RJ at 3. I think you could successfully slide Grimes to the small forward and just kind of work a 3-man / wing hybrid backcourt with Brunson and Holiday and Grimes. So again, all this is hypotheticals. We'll see what kind of Portland demands, but make no mistake, there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in this dude. So you're going to have to pony up. EJ, what do you think? Is Holiday worth going at?
I'm not going after Drew Holiday if I'm the Knicks. And look, Drew Holiday, as you said, all around A-class kind of character dude, an absolute pit bull defensively. Many reasons why I would understand any team, especially a team that's trying to win, would want Drew Holiday. I just think this is one of those deals when we think of what the Knicks can offer and what they would have to offer and what Drew Holiday brings to the table and whether or not he puts them over the top. I just don't think that it's a fit. So if you're looking at a trade, you're either talking about, again, Randall, who there's no way Knicks are trading Randall for Drew Holiday for a multitude of reasons, or you're talking about RJ Barrett. There's essentially there is no other combination of salaries. You can't trade Josh Hart. You can't trade obviously DiVincenzo. I think Fournier and Quickly don't even equate to the money it would take to match a Holiday salary. So you're talking about trading RJ and then trading some draft filler or whatever for Drew Holiday. And if you think that makes your team exponentially better to go up against the Milwaukees, go up against the Bostons to win a championship in that regard, and you're taking probably one of your more prized pieces in what would be a superstar trade in RJ Barrett and taking him off the board and bringing in Drew Holiday, a guy on a 1-year deal who's 33 years old. I just think if you're looking at the big picture and what the Knicks are trying to build, which is to create a strong nucleus that could then allow them to poach a superstar by giving up just a few pieces from this nucleus, I don't think it makes sense from that regard. If you're telling me Drew Holiday is going to come with another star in a massive trade, that's something totally different. But I don't think it makes sense. So I'm saying, okay, I'm trading RJ Barrett and X number of first round picks or Barrett and Grimes, something like that, and I'm trying to swing a trade for Holiday. I just don't see how that makes sense from that regard. I think the Knicks are already a small team that makes them even smaller. And I think the pairing of Brunson and him isn't the worst in the world because Holiday is such a great defender. He can guard pretty much any 2-guard. But I get it because it's hard to be a basketball fan and not love the way Drew Holiday plays. But I don't see it with the Knicks with where they are right now. And I think it is underrated how poorly he shoots in the playoffs. I mean, he shot 40% last year in that series against Miami. He shot 36 in the conference semifinal loss to Boston the year before. Even in the finals when they won, shot 36% in that series. He shot 36% against Brooklyn in the second round of that series when Kyrie went out and Harden was limping around on a bad hamstring. He has not really been a great playoff performer offensively. And of course, the playoffs is where you're going to make your money. And Knicks are going to need someone to help Jalen Brunson come playoff times, because we saw Randall isn't all that reliable either.
Those numbers are concerning, the postseason
Yep.
performances. And before the Knicks even consider making their final offer, a first offer, they need to sit down with Holiday or his agent or some, ideally Holiday himself, and say, what are your plans? Like, is this 1 year? Are you looking to re-sign, just play this year and then one more year? Do you want to sign a long-term contract? If we traded for you, is New York a place you see yourself? Obviously anything can change once you get here and you fit and etc. But obviously, you're familiar with Tibbs. You'd think that'd be a match in terms of personality and play style wise. But again, it's very difficult to trade valuable assets. And, obviously we know the Knicks are, accumulating these assets for a superstar trade.
Yeah.
This Holiday is not a guy that puts you over the top. He's not the final piece. So that's what you got to be weary of course. The argument could be made that Holiday gets you closer to getting the final piece. In other words,
possibly
in 6 months, when Embiid, demands a trade, you would think having the appeal of playing alongside Holiday would increase his desire to arrive in New York. But as we know, as the Dame trade perfectly illustrates, just because a guy says I only have one team, this is where I want to go, it doesn't mean that's going to work out. We've seen it kind of shift the other way now. I think the NBA, it's seen enough of the player empowerment stuff, and this is kind of a shift in that direction. And we'll get into why I don't think personally that the Blazers behaved poorly or reprehensibly or however the Miami media wants to classify it. But yeah, so again, I gun to my head, I'd probably lean no. But again, it's a lot depending on price, and just as importantly, depending on Holiday's kind of. We haven't heard from him since the trade went down.
Yeah.
Again, this is a guy that has aspirations that are larger than basketball. He type of dude you could see running for office one day. Like
definitely
that type of person. So those are the things I would need to know before I even felt comfortable offering RJ plus picks, because that's probably what it's going to take. Again, you're not getting him for Fournier, expiring contract and
right.
protected. It's not a Josh Hart situation. Drew Holiday will have multiple suitors for all the elite teams, the Miami, the Celtics, etc. That's another reason why I would prefer to. I'd be very interested in at least listening to offers, and the Knicks are going to do their due diligence, because if he doesn't go to you, it's probably going to go to one of your competitors.
Yes.
So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, if I'm the Knicks, I'd be rooting very hard for the Clippers to land Drew Holiday.
Yes.
As among the teams that are being discussed, I think that's what you want. Send him out west so he's not a factor. He's killed the Knicks, by the way, in regular season games. It seemed like every time the Bucks played the Knicks, I don't know if he had some kind of issue with New York. He don't like Tibbs. He don't like Brunson, or I don't know what it is, but this guy hits crazy shots every time he comes to Madison Square Garden. So you don't want to see this guy in a future postseason series. You don't want to deal with him during the regular season. So if you're a Knicks brass member and you're talking about, okay, if we're not getting Drew, let's hope that he gets sent somewhere else. And I think LA, the Clippers, that being probably the main Western Conference team that you would look at as a team that may want him. On the Dame front, first on the Giannis side of this, because we've been doing podcasts, we've done several about this conversation of Giannis to the Knicks. Does this kind of get deaded, you think, with Dame going to Milwaukee?
Yeah, so that's kind of the first, people text me right away. Oh man, this means Dame's, that the Giannis to New York dream is dead. That seemed to kind of be the consensus on Knicks Twitter. In the first few minutes, hours, day, et cetera. It was kind of the first initial reaction, like, wow, blockbuster trade. Oh, he's going to Milwaukee. That means that Giannis. Let me just say this. I think the chances of Giannis coming to New York have decreased. They're lower today than they were Monday or over the weekend. I won't disagree with that. I would pump the brakes with this definitely means Giannis is going to sign a max extension. Like, this is a no-brainer now. Let me just, as a point of reference, next summer. So Giannis has said he won't sign a contract this summer. Does that change? Now that Dame is on board, maybe he, as a reward to the Bucks management for kind of doing what they asked and kind of pushing all their chips in the middle of the table. Does he sign an extension? I don't think so. Let's assume he doesn't. it's probably safe to assume he's not going to sign it during the season. It's rare that contract negotiations and all that, they're going to be focused on winning a championship, etc. Next summer is kind of what we always assumed would be prior to this Dame trade. And I still think it's probably the case kind of the summer where it's make or break, where Giannis is going to have to make a big decision. And consequently, the Bucks are going to have to make a big decision, because after this summer, he'll have 1 year left on his contract and then have that player option. So technically 2 years. But from a Bucks perspective, they will have him under contract for 1 more year. There are obviously going to be lines of communication open between Giannis and Milwaukee management.
Yeah.
And if Giannis is uncomfortable signing, first of all, if things go sideways, does Dame get hurt? Does Middleton, who's had issues, can he stay healthy? Brook Lopez is getting up there in years, still a great player. They don't have a lot of depth. They sacrifice some depth, outside of their main 4 and Bobby Portis. They're going to rely heavily on guys like Pat Connaughton. Does Malik Beasley resurrect his career in Milwaukee?
Yeah.
All that can happen. Milwaukee's going to be my pick to win the NBA championship this year. So it certainly is, would be surprising if things really went off the tracks. If they lost in the first round, if they lost in the second round, you'd have to assume that anything less than at least an Eastern Conference Finals, if not an NBA Finals trip and not a championship, would qualify as a disappointing season. So in that scenario, and as we know, no matter how talented your roster are, luck plays a huge part in deciding championship. Next summer, Brook Lopez will be 36. Dame Lillard will be 34. Chris Middleton will be 33. Giannis is going to be in his late 20s, looking at the future of his career, the
Right.
remainder of his prime. Is he willing to sign up long-term and commit himself to that aging core? Yes, they'll be able to flip those guys, but they won't have any draft picks to trade. And if they're looking to trade those guys, that means those guys are not helping them win a championship, which means
Right.
their
Yeah.
increased.
Right. Exactly.
So there's not a lot of avenues towards. Listen, they could have a bad year and then they'd still be the favorites, probably heading into the following season to win a championship. So it's not like, but then you start looking at a couple of years down the line. Giannis could agree to a contract extension and then demand a trade at that point. But there's a lot. But I just say that to say this: there's no guarantees that he's going to re-up long term.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the chances decrease for sure, just because I think that this is a pairing that is extremely potent potentially. I don't know how you guard a Lillard Giannis pick and roll. I just good luck. I mean, you can't play drop because Dame can shoot from 40 feet. You're going to try to take the ball at Dame. Okay, you're going to allow Giannis to get the ball on a short roll on a 4-on-3. Good luck with that. Like, I don't know what you do to you can't switch these guys because whoever's guarding Giannis can't guard Dame, vice versa. So I mean, it's going to be extremely difficult to beat this team, of course, with the major caveat if healthy. And then the if healthy caveat is important, I think, with Dame Lillard. This is a guy who has dealt with some injuries. I know it seemed like in the Chris Haynes report, he made it sound like whatever calf injury they shut him down for last year was not real. It was more about getting draft capital, which I think we all maybe could see through. But this is a guy that's missed a lot of time in the last few years. So that is a caveat. But given Giannis's thing about winning championships, I think this helps the Bucks' chances exponentially getting a championship. So I think that, yes, the Knicks' chances are decreased. But as you mentioned, the Bucks remain an old team. Like, nothing has changed in terms of age when it comes to this trade. They're still an old team. They're going to be an old team this next year. And now, given that they've given up pretty much the rest of the basically assets in their coffers with this trade, they're not going to there's no out. Like, this is it. And I mean, I would make the move too. Like, I think this is a great move for the Bucks. Yes. But if this doesn't work and Giannis looks at this and says, all right, well, we're going to run it back with these old guys and hope that they stay more healthy or figure it out after a year of getting to play with each other, he may say, you know what, I need to go to a team that has some younger talent, that has a little bit more flexibility. And if that happens, the Knicks are going to be right there. So I'm not going to say that the Knicks are completely, utterly out, but I know Giannis's number one thing is winning a championship. So because this helps them win a championship for sure, at least in my opinion, that's why I would say for the Knicks side of it, probably decreases their chances of Giannis going to New York. When I saw this trade go down, the first thing I thought was, hey, big head to Joel Embiid. We've been talking all about Giannis, and I switched my attention right back to Embiid and like, hey, big head, you still up? That was my approach when I saw this deal go down.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the attitude of most Knicks fans is, they'll probably focus on Embiid, and then the question becomes, if Embiid or another superstar, gets put on the block, does Leon Rose kind of keep his powder dry for the off chance that Giannis is, wants to change things? We should, fortunately, it's next summer. I don't see Giannis, you know, uh, 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 staying for one more year, and saying I'm not, I don't. I shouldn't say that. I could see the Bucks willing to run it back, and Giannis puts it off for a year. But I just think that's a real risky play from Milwaukee's perspective. Again, they have traded all their next seven future first round draft picks are either been traded away outright or swaps. They would need to, obviously once Giannis leaves, then they can kind of rip the thing down and trade Middleton and Lopez and
Yeah.
reassess the market for Dame, et cetera. So they have ways to kickstart a rebuild, but obviously that's their least path of what they would prefer is keeping this core together and winning multiple championships. So you think if they win a title next year or are in a tight, close final series with the the Nuggets or the Suns or somebody. That Giannis would feel comfortable enough, even though it's not probably the best long term to stay put. So that's the likely odds on. But a lot of things can happen. A lot of weird stuff can take place. So I just would keep that in mind, Knicks fans.
And lastly, real quick, I know you said you don't have a problem how Portland handled it. I don't either. I know in that report it said they only talked to Miami in July and that was it. That there was no communication between Dame and his representation, Aaron Goodwin, and the Blazers, and that when it became evident to Dame that he likely wasn't going to go to Miami, that he asked to come back to the Blazers and rescind his trade request. And Joe Cronin, the GM, said it's too late for that. The ship has sailed. Like, we're not doing that. I don't see anything wrong with the Blazers did. I'm sorry. And I think this comes down to what I think people have seemed to forgot, which is these are contractual commitments that you make with these teams when you sign these long-term extensions. If Dame wanted the leverage to send himself to Miami, he should have never signed an extension with the Portland Trailblazers, thinking that they were going to try to find a way to build a champion when everybody with a brain knew that they were nowhere near championship contention. You can't then sign an extension for $200+ million and then say, okay, I'm going to leave your team, but also send me to this place. That's just not how it works. People want to get upset about Joe Cronin being in his feelings. He's within his right to be within his feelings. He can do whatever he wants because at the end of the day, Dame Lillard made that commitment to the Portland Trailblazers. So I don't have any real sympathy for him. I also don't have sympathy for, the fact that you had an agent here in Aaron Goodwin who was basically running point for the Miami Heat. I've never seen a player get traded and an agent come out with a statement. The first statement is, I want to thank the Miami Heat for all they've done. He didn't even thank the team that Dame Lillard was going to. He was thanking the team that Dame Lillard, I guess, wanted to go to or tried to go to. I want to thank Pat Riley and Mickey Harris. I'm like, what the hell is this? I mean, that seemed like a major disservice to Dame Lillard, given he's about to go to a new city and fans that want to be excited for him. But I just don't understand this idea that there's we all talk about this quote-unquote loyalty stuff. I mean, Dame Lillard requested a trade after signing for a max contract. At that point, he lost all control of the situation. He can't now cry now that he didn't have the control he wanted.
I'm stunned by, first of all, the Chris Hayes article, which was, as a mouthpiece for Dame and Goodwin. That's one side of the story. That's sitting at the lunch table and, the girl's best friend tells you why they broke up.
I don't think that they even looked good in it. Like, that's the weird thing. And people were saying, oh, this really I'm like, the Heat didn't call them since July. That looks kind of stupid. Okay, he confirms that that Goodwin was indeed trying to tell other teams not to trade for my client or he won't play. Like, he's confirmed. I think they look terrible in this.
I was so confused why people were like, oh my God, the Blazers did Dame dirty,
Right.
I couldn't, I reread it. I was like, what am I missing here? It's one of those situations where Dame and the Blazers have been in a healthy marriage, a beneficial, for both parties. Both parties agree. Listen, we talk a lot about the $200 million extension. That wasn't a charity gift to Dame. The Blazers did that because they thought it was best for their franchise.
Right.
I would disagree that it was best for the franchise, but
yes, I would say.
Sure, some of it was part of loyalty to Dame and what he had done to the franchise, but also the guy averaged 32 points a game. He's definitely capable of helping, the team going forward. Anyway. the contract signed. Dame comes to them. It's like being in marriage, and the husband says, "Listen, I'm gonna leave you, but just for one girl. It's just one girl down in South Beach. She's really attractive. We've had a good run. No disrespect to you, love you all. But I'm gonna head down here." And then that falls apart. He moves down to South Beach and finds out the girl's, it's just not gonna work out. Comes back home and says, "You know what? I'm going to stay with you. Don't worry about that. I'm going to bless you with my presence. I've decided that it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll come back here and I'll play for the $150 million that I've signed a contract that I'm going to do. I'll honor that commitment. So don't worry about it." Like, and in the article it said, Goodwin and Dame were shocked that Cronin wasn't amenable to that. Like, dude, like,
yeah,
you can't have your cake and eat it too. And ultimately, Dame ended up. They didn't trade him to Russia. They didn't trade him to,
exactly.
They traded him to the best situation of his entire career, playing alongside Giannis and Middleton and Lopez. The Bucks are the odds-on favorite. He's still going to get his money. So for him and Goodwin to come out on the other side of this and try to make it seem like he's the victim, I was stunned by that approach.
Absolutely stunned as well. Could not believe it. But we'll see how the season plays out now with the new pairing of Giannis and Dame, and what that means for the Knicks, not just in the pecking order in the East, but also what it means for them in the future star hunt that they continue to be on. But let's shift gears. I want to quickly talk about this because it was of note to me this week. So you had Gerson Rosas, the team, announcing that he is now the senior basketball vice president of basketball operations. He was previously the senior basketball advisor. So this new role puts him one step behind Leon Rose and Worldwide West, William Wesley, Leon the president, William Wesley, the senior vice president, in the pecking order of decision making for the Knicks. So Rosas has been an integral part of the Knicks front office since joining the team as an advisor in 2022, February of that year. He previously served as an executive in the Rockets front office, kind of cutting his teeth in the Daryl Morey front office. He then was briefly a general manager for the Dallas Mavericks before becoming president of the Minnesota Timberwolves. That ended very poorly. To note, there was a lot of controversy surrounding it. There was a consensual affair he had with a team employee. There was this very weird toxic relationship with his underling vice president, where he blocked the guy from going to a different organization, wasn't allowing him in certain meetings. It was very weird, but it did not end well in Minnesota. He did draft Anthony Edwards, did trade for D'Angelo Russell. So they kind of build the foundation of some of those T-Wolves teams we then saw go on to make the playoffs. So what do you think this promotion means in the short term with Gerson Rosas getting this role?
Yeah, I thought it was expected. I think, he's one of the names that we discussed when there was when Scott Perry moved on, that Rosas would likely be promoted. Obviously, familiarity with Leon Rose, been in and around the organization, has previous experience running a franchise. So, for better or for worse, there are certain organizations that are kind of one-man shows where, one guy kind of ultimately makes all the, not all the decisions, but holds far more weight than others. It does seem like, again, this is speculation because we get no insight into the office. They don't speak to us, yada, yada, yada. But there does seem to be kind of let's put our heads together and come to a collective consensus on this entire scenario. So I don't think it's any major impact in terms of for the Knicks or their modus operandi moving forward.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that for them, I think Rosas in many ways was kind of occupying this role unofficially. In some ways, I think this is kind of just them giving him the title, maybe giving him the money that he would then probably deserve for the actions he was doing. I mean, he was told that he was said to be the point person in the Donovan Mitchell negotiations, but I think for me at least, and for some Knicks fans, was a little alarming. It was just like, you had at that time Scott Perry, you have Walt Perrin, you have of course Leon, you have William Wesley, and a basketball advisor is doing trade negotiations with the Utah Jazz. It seemed a little odd. But the Knicks kind of do things outside the box in terms of, as you said, their collaborative process. So they don't have a general manager right now. Perry left. So to me, this is probably Rose is essentially taking that role, but maybe even added because, again, Perry had kind of been not sidelined, but it wasn't as influential as he was, of course, under the Mills administration. So It's good to see. I think there's a chance that maybe I never thought Leon was like a guy who's going to be here forever. So I think there's a chance that maybe they kind of checking him out to see if maybe he could be the president once William and Leon decide to move on from the situation. But I agree. I don't know if it's a huge thing beyond just that this is a guy who's been working hard for them and they wanted to kind of give him that due.
Yeah, and with the Utah Jazz stuff, a lot of that tends to be who has a relationship with the other team's executives and all that other stuff. So yeah, it's one of those situations where we'll see how it plays out. I think Leon's probably planning on sticking around. Doesn't seem to have like the day-to-day stuff that can kind of wear you down. He seems to kind of be up here, and you guys make your decisions and bring your reports to me, and let's, like you said, collaboratively discuss what's the best path to move forward, which tends to lead to successful organizations. When there's as opposed to the whims of one man, there's more of a collaborative process. Tends to yield better results. Based on history. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what Rosas does. If he gets a. But one thing we can expect is not to hear his voice too much inside.
Yeah, no press conferences, no comments about Rosas being promoted here. But it is a sad day here at Orange and Blue Bloods. It is Tommy's last day as a co-host of the podcast. We've had so many awesome moments, so many great memories, and I wanted to kind of capture that with a little bit of a montage. So here you go. I am one of your co-hosts, EJ Stewart from WFAN and CBS Sports Radio. Really excited to be starting this journey with my co-host, who is none other than Mr. Tommy Beer himself, veteran NBA writer, author of the What's on Tap newsletter, and host of the What's on Tap podcast. So Tommy Beer, really excited for you to join me on this, and let's get it.
EJ, let's do it, my friend. Yes, very excited as well. Plenty to talk about. Happy to have you guys along for the journey. This is going to be your one-stop shop for previews and reviews and trade talk and anything else that pops up in Knicks Nation. As you Knicks fans know, there's always something to talk about with this team, with this franchise.
Jalen Brunson, the new Knicks starting point guard. Tommy, has Jalen been naughty or nice?
This is an easy one, isn't it, Santa Stewart? I think so. The first thing we put in there is a second-round draft pick, a 2025 second-round draft pick. We stuffed that in his stocking. But Knicks fans will attest. I'm sure if they started a GoFundMe, he'd get plenty of contributions to get plenty of stocking stuffers.
Just heard that Knicks head coach say, "I don't care about numbers when we lose." Tom Thibodeau, New Year's resolution: no more nonsensical answers in the post-game press conference.
Good luck with that. I'll say that resolution has about as much chance of coming to fruition as my goal is to go to the gym, 3 days a week. So we'll see if that happens. EJ, you don't think we'll get Leon Rose to hop on the pod? You don't be a guest
I don't think we'll be his first stop. I think
probably not.
You'll have to sit down with Alan Hahn. Shout out to Alan Hahn though.
Yeah.
Trae Young's wearing the blue and orange sneakers. King of Broadway. First of all, King of Broadway is a terrible name. I'm sorry. There are so many, and I don't know if Adidas came up with that or he came up with that. There are so many great names he could have came up with. That's
corny, bro.
Trae Young.
That's a dude that grew up in Oklahoma. No disrespect, plays in Atlanta. That's either his idea or some, like to your point, some ad rep for Adidas saying, "Hey, this would be neat if we said he was but I joke that Quinn Grimes should be arrested for regicide because he killed the king last night. He took his lunch money. He basically made him take off his shoes. Run that. He didn't do himself any favors, and it makes zero sense. It's it reeked of a spoiled billionaire publicly airing grievances that, again, all I could think of was that Jonah Hill meme where he's just, where he's just going
yeah.
All I could think about was Dolan Lawyers just going, dude, just you don't have to say anything. And somebody in a limo with him on the way to fucking, remember, let's stick to the talking points, talk about how well the Knicks are playing and ticket sales are up, but again, he just can't, he gets in front of that camera and you just knew something bad was going to come. Honestly, when I heard in the morning that he was going to be on the show, that it didn't end up worse than it did. I think at this point, part of it is, pundits assume he's going to say something ridiculous. And, basically did. And of course, when things are going relatively well, and over that time, net fans saying, okay, Kyrie's playing so well, maybe we should bring him back,
Right.
maybe we should
Yeah.
sign him to an extension. That was the talk. Should we sign him to an extension before, the end of the season or next year, maybe a 3-year deal, or do we do him just a 2-year or 1 year? You could just see them, kind of with that friend of yours that's dating that really attractive girl, but she's crazy and she's toxic and she's going to ruin, the person's life if he continues to stay in a union with this individual. But for whatever reason, he can't divest himself from the situation.
Yeah.
And that's what we have here.
Do you like the fit of Josh Hart on this Knicks team?
Yeah, it's hard not to be a fan of Josh Hart if you're a fan of winning basketball. A guy that does what it takes to win. I think it was earlier this season or maybe late last year. He had a 20 rebound game at the Garden. It's a guy that just contributes on both ends of the floor. Dating back to his Villanova days, a winning player, can score if you need it, can defend if you need it, versatile, can guard the 2, the 3, and slide it kind of across the perimeter. He's willing to make the hockey assist, be a connector offensively. I think it'll be a great series. I think it'll be an extended series. I think it goes 7 games, and I'm going to pick the Knicks to beat the Cavs in Cleveland in that game.
There you go.
Another factor, as you know, Cavs have been very good at home, 31-10 at home, 5th most home wins in the league. The Knicks have been very, very good on the road, 24-17. The Bucks have 2 more wins than the Knicks.
Tommy, how were the Knicks able to close out Cleveland in the fashion that they did?
Oh man, where to start? You talked about Jalen Brunson. Quite frankly, he was the best player in the series. We talked about it often, and it's common NBA knowledge. The team with the best player often wins. That was the case in this series. It's funny, just before we get into all this stuff, I thought of all the happy fan bases, Knicks and the Heat, obviously, and everything going on in the NBA, Donovan Mitchell should be really happy that the Bucks lost last night, and Giannis conversation, and there's so much to talk about that if this had happened on a Tuesday and there weren't many other storylines, there's not going to be a lot of rehashing of the trade. Everybody that bashed the Knicks for not trading for Donovan Mitchell, but that should be said, and we'll have that conversation at some point. Let's start on a positive note, because this was a season in which the Knicks vastly exceeded expectations.
Yeah,
and even in the series they lost, they exceeded expectations. Even though they were probably, I don't know if they were favored or, obviously they weren't favored in this game, but coming into the series was probably a coin flip. The play and performance of Jalen Brunson is what I think I'll take away from the season. Really special player, really special performance. The Knicks' future is bright because he's on their roster.
I thought that we had to, I know it was a little long. I wanted to make sure that we got as many big moments from the podcast as we could. There's some that didn't make it in there. Reason why I was late for you guys recording this podcast for Tommy and for Jimmy was I was trying to throw this together as quickly as I could. But Tommy, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor. As I said before, I admired your work for so long. So you even doing this podcast has been a treat for me, and absolutely it's sad day, but it's bittersweet because knowing that I was able to create this bond with you and create this friendship that lasts beyond this podcast is something I can always take home with me. So thank you for everything. When I started this show, I did not think that Tommy would even do it. The fact that he even agreed or showed that maybe there was something in the stars that knew that this thing had to happen. So I cannot thank Tommy enough for all of his hard work and just the bond that he's been able to create, not just with me, but also our producer James as well. It's been an absolute amazing ride. And Tommy, I give you the final word. Thanks. Yeah,
Can't thank you enough for EJ for inviting me on, and thanks to all the listeners for tuning in and kind of sharing this with us, and JJ as well. But yeah, AJ, this has been cool, but this is just a start. How Brunson and the Knicks are on the right track.
Yeah,
I know you are as well. So looking forward to hopping on, like I said, and having fun. So
yeah, I'm definitely gonna have you back, Tommy. You are absolute gem. Every time I do a show, I should say more on this podcast, but every time I do a radio show, I always say I do a podcast with one of the best NBA writers in the world, Tommy Beer. That is how I feel. And not only that, I know he's one of the best NBA writers in the world, one of the best dudes in the world. So thank you so much, Tommy Beer. Thank you so much to the listeners for riding with us. Orange and Blue Blood's not going anywhere. I will still be here. There will be a co-host. We may have some guest co-hosts for the next few weeks, but we will have a co-host. Plenty of still Knicks stuff to talk about, so we will be here every week still breaking down Knicks stuff as we always do, but definitely want to make sure we did a proper cap off to this era of Orange and Blue Blood. So I want to thank you guys so much for checking us out on this episode. Of course, if you enjoyed this podcast, you can catch this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Audacy app. Be sure to hit the auto download feature on your streaming service. Get these episodes every time we drop. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube as well, where we're on the WFAN channel. And also be sure to rate and review the podcast as well. And follow us on social media. Tommy, let people know where they can find you. Let people know where they can find your work moving forward. Said, I want this community to continue to follow your work. If they followed me and then they found you or whatever, I want to make sure that we're staying committed and we're staying loyal to our guy. We're not going to be a Dame Lillard and have no communication for the next year or whatever. So let people know where they can find you.
Appreciate you, my friend. At Tommy Beer on Twitter, the What's on Tap newsletter. And again, so thankful for so much. And friendship is right at the top of that list.
100%. And trust me, we will be having Tommy Beer because I need to get his thoughts on the Knicks season, preseason, playoff, all that stuff. So Tommy will be back, but it just won't be on the regular basis as we always do. Make sure you follow that What's on Tap newsletter. Of course, follow me on the regular places per usual. EJ_Stewart on Twitter, @EJ on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Thank you guys again so much for checking us out. For Tommy, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.